Good
morning, members, officers, and viewers, and especially welcome to the Leader of the Council. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible. Post translations of the proceedings can be provided on request. The image and the sound recordings may be used for training purposes within the Council. On the please.
From Councillor Cox and from Councillor Reynolds.
Minutes of the previous meeting, then please. We're looking at the 12th of June now. And someone move that a reasonable record. Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Any matters arising?
Yeah, there was one matter arising. This was, if you recall, when we had the Welsh language report, that we questioned why we're using bilingual. We didn't have a English translation of slice. Sorry. And Councillor Harris, let's take this feedback in the committee.
That's the way to replace our contact.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Is that it? Okay, thank you. And now, can we look at the 26th of June minutes, please? Someone move that a reasonable record. Thank you, Councillor James. Secondly, Councillor Evans, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Any matters arising? Just the Councillor Harris, would you second it? Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to the annual digital report 24-25, and you may also recall that we had the information and risk report a couple of months ago. So you will find some repeated information, but I think it probably adds value to the report. Do you want to say anything before we start, Nina?
No.
Yeah. Mr. Kim? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the report starts on page 7 in the pack. I've got a number of colleagues in the room today. You can see their names, but we all lead on different aspects of digital. The director's online because it's also not been into the room today, so he's online. We do have some of the information from the risk report in this report because it's an important part of our digital setup also. We report annually. The report is based on the digital strategy, which I hear that Scrutiny also agreed. And we report under key themes: transformation, skills and inclusion, data and collaboration, and infrastructure and connectivity, which is why risk is part of that. I'll ask Mark to run through a brief overview of the key things in the report. This is a report that then goes on to Cabinet with scrutiny comments, and it's not a statutory report, but we feel it's really important to update members and the public on the digital achievements we make.
I guess the first point to make is we have changed the format somewhat this year, so we've kind of got some boxes throughout the report. What we tried to do is just make it, what difference is it making, etc., rather than maybe the more textual kind of setup we've had in the past. So again, we welcome comments on that. It feels better to us, but again, we're not the judge of that. So we appreciate comments on that. So Tracy's mentioned the kind of the backdrop to this in terms of the digital strategy and the themes. So the report is structured around the themes and it continues to be so. So I'll go through some quick highlights. What we've also tried to do in the report is make it a bit more visual. So when we've got image of things, so we've got things like the website, we've got some case studies and the like, we've tried to include those. So there's quite a lot in there. I'll try and go through pretty quickly. So local broadband fund, a really useful project in Adroddiad residential care homes, vastly improved their connectivity, it's enabled them to do things that they couldn't do before. There's a really nice case study there with links to a video done by Welsh Government. So that's a really good watch. Very brief. We are doing a lot more work in the automation space and something called robotic process automation. We've already talked about this before, so we've made good progress on that. So we've had a number of initiatives and there's lots more in the pipeline. So that's very much positive. Can't go anywhere with it without hearing about artificial intelligence. So in our case, it's Microsoft Copilot. So we allocated licenses to that. We've been supporting staff developing use cases for that. As you'll be aware, it technically happened in 25-26, but we kind of rolled out the free version of Microsoft Copilot Chat to all staff, including members. And we've had a couple of member sessions on that, and there are more to be organised. So that's positive. Again, all this we welcome feedback. And some positive work in assistive technology and social care, helping improve independence, and there are some potential significant cost savings in that. Everybody's interested in the website, and that's made a major improvement over the last couple of years. It's not complete, there is some more to do. We also picked up in another meeting about why the piece where the systems aren't technically the website, but they contribute to the website, and again, they weren't part of this initial phase. Colleagues in digital communications have made a number of improvements, and that's been recognised positively by various parties. We've had loads of system changes. You'll be aware of a major change to the social care system, and that is a huge challenge to implement. Some more mundane things in a sense, but in terms of telephony and mobile phone changes, we've made changes to those, to the contracts and the solutions, and some details there, and in terms of some major savings that we've as a result of that. The skills and inclusion piece, there's lots of ongoing work, adult community learning, digital inclusion activities. We're looking at tablet learning scheme. We are trying to improve the digital skills of staff, and AI can contribute to that. Digital inclusion space, we provide public Wi-Fi buildings, community buildings, we provide plus Wi-Fi. Done a lot of work for digital accessibility for staff, so how they can use their device if they have visual impairments and other challenges. In terms of the data and collaboration theme, as has been mentioned, we do an annual information risk report, which broadly covers this in detail. So we tend to put highlights in here. Sean and colleagues in SRS have been working on a collaborative data platform, which is progressing well. Again, an ongoing theme is to make better use of our data in decision making. Again, Sean and colleagues are key to that. The process customer requests for information, so FOIs were just below target, and subject access request was above target. That's the best figures we've had. Final theme is digital infrastructure and connectivity. We've been making some improvements to the CCTV infrastructure, including in future will be a change to one of the sites for that. Colleagues in regenerative economic development have been working on a consistent footfall monitoring for the city centre, and again that will provide information that previously hasn't been available. Again, you probably have heard the digital switchover, which is moving from analog telephone lines. There's been a lot of work involved in that for the council, because we've obviously got lots of lines across various sites. So that's a bit of a summary of kind of some of the important things that we've done. We've got in one of the appendices, we've got a benefits realisation. So we're trying to make more of that again to identify what difference these kind of initiatives, projects have made. And as this one was also a question at briefing, we have an action plan that's detailed. So that was probably all I was going to cover. Anything, obviously happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I just say about the format? Thank you very much. I think it's in line with what we asked for last year, so that's great, and hopefully we can continue the theme next year.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get even more images in there when we can. So we may be able to get a bit more in the account. So.
Great. Councillor James.
Got some questions on digital communications, which I'll be best to direct them to.
No, direct from you, please.
Oh yeah, sorry. See, this is because I'm used to attending online. I noticed, Chair, that the digital communications section is actually lacking in detail. Perhaps it's because, you know, I've spent a lot of my professional career managing social media, but there's a lot I can't determine from this. Big questions on, for example, the reach percentages. Really appreciate the fact that we're comparing the first 4 months of 2025 with the equivalent period in 2024.
Sorry, just a hint, if you want to break up your questions and get an answer to that specific point.
I got, yeah.
And
then come back. Yeah,
you
that's
come back as many times as you want.
So the Facebook and Instagram, I mean, Instagram in particular views at 5,400%. That's quite remarkable, but what was the baseline in 2024? And what is it now in numerical terms?
I can tell you the numbers.
I'll take that. So what I'm going to say is the baseline is quite low. I don't have the figures to hand, but I can get them. But our previous use of Instagram, particularly as a platform, was much lower than it is now, and that's one of the areas that's really been stepped up. And we can possibly amend the report to say that. That said, we didn't expect that improvement in such a short period of time, but it wasn't obvious.
Yeah. Okay. There's a bit on content interactions on Facebook. Has the council performed a sentiment analysis on those content interactions? And if so, what was the result of that?
Can I answer that? Interestingly, we're going to performance scrutiny on comms in 2 months' time, so we're putting together some of this. So not formally, but that's in process. Where we come from a digital content creation point of view is a low starting point, but it was not our previous preferred method of communications. That's hugely changed with the new cabinet member and a more modern approach. We know we need to do more in that space, and hence it going back to performance scrutiny.
Mr. Petroni, let's give it another.
Yeah, you're picking up that we've upped our game in the social media space. You know, you hear me talk about this a lot. Our under 16s are growing over 10%. You know, Instagram, you know, is the place, and TikTok now we've ventured into, which even I'm a bit too old for now. But you know, we've got to move to where residents are increasingly engaging with all sorts of people and institutions. So over the last year and a bit, we've really upped the game. So yeah, the percentage is shocking, but that's because we're low rates.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I add? Sorry, and we'll receive these figures in next year's report. So yeah.
I'll get them out to the committee following this meeting. If I can get them in the meeting, I will. But
I just wanted clarification what the sentiment analysis was, because I have no idea.
It basically, you pull
I
out
just want to explain to me, Chair, what it is.
Bill?
It's which proportion of the population that you're hitting?
No, it's whether those interactions are positive or negative, any themes.
And themes. So the key, Councillor James is actually spot on. This thing I both all of this with is what are the public telling us? Okay, and what are the broad themes beyond the individual loud voices? What are the general mass sort of telling us of what the issues are at that time in almost in real time? And is that genuinely negative or genuinely positive, which is really key for us to understand what's happening out there.
Or what I would call kitchen cabinets. Something we used to do in the 70s.
I wasn't alive, Chair, so I'll take your word for it. Councillor Evans?
No.
Sorry, Mr. Blizzard, did you want to come in on this one, or should we go back to Councillor? Next question, please.
Yeah, thank you. Where was I? Yes, competitor analysis. have you undertaken a competitor analysis, and if so, what was the result of that? And which councils have you looked at? For instance, Bradford, I think, is a good example. In Wales, have you looked at Swansea? Or I'm loath to compare us to Cardiff, them being our capital, but even Swansea, for example, any other cities in England or even beyond.
Yeah, you're talking about comms again, just to be clear.
Yes, yeah, I'm still on digital comms.
Okay. Another thing that occurs to me, by the way, is when we go to performance scrutiny, perhaps we can share that more detailed update with this committee also. I think that'd be helpful as we 2 months away. We have tended to look primarily at Welsh cities as our nearest competitors, but also not just other councils, other organisations that are doing things with digital content. Depending more on the subject, the theme. So some of the stuff we're doing, for example, on waste and recycling, which you might have seen some examples of those reels, we're more inclined to look at others that are doing stuff in that space rather than wholly looking at individual approaches. So it's based on our needs.
Okay, so I think the next question is about YouTube. I think I was talking about that this morning. I've had a look at the YouTube channel, the Newport City Council YouTube channel, but also the NCC, what was it again? NCC Democratic Meetings, which is a little bit of a mouthful. I'm checking out these videos, and I can't analyse it in the way that I normally would because I don't have the stuff on this device to do it. But just looking at it at the moment, I mean, you've got a 24-second video on the Newport Food Festival uploaded in the same format as a long form video. That could have been a short and would have had much wider reach. We've got 11 views on that at the moment. Not much optimization in the description either, and although you have included one hashtag, which I suppose is better than none, I don't see any data on YouTube reach in this report, and YouTube is one of the biggest search engines out there. So can you put some YouTube data in that report, and can you include the democratic meetings one as well?
So in terms of, that's that in 2 bits. So we know YouTube is really underused. I mean, that's come up in another committee kind of, in value for money sense, almost why I don't think for very small viewers. So that is something that's underused and underdeveloped. We're aware of that, but we have really focused on other social media this year, and that's how we've got those improvements elsewhere. It's a small team, we do need to prioritise. In terms of the report, I am nervous about that. This isn't the comms report. So this is an example of where we've used digital tools, not really related to any of us in the room, but it is my area as well, comms. So this is just an example of how we've used digital tools to step up our comms. So we need to think about where else that's reported. It's actually reported in my service plan and comms, so we can make sure it is reported. I don't know if it will be in the digital report.
Yeah, that's fine. I just thought since YouTube and TikTok were mentioned, that I don't actually have TikTok. Analyse that, sadly. I did have a follow-up question on that, and it's gone. So I might come back.
Well, in cyberspace somewhere.
I remember my question actually. That's right. I know Leader is quite big on AI, so am I. There are all sorts of tools that can help you analyse your YouTube videos easily. Has anyone looked into tools that will help them do that? It really doesn't need to take much time at all to optimise your YouTube presence.
Really, you don't have to answer the questions this morning. If you do want
Well,
to,
Tracy, go first, and I'll follow up.
Okay, so we're looking at, actually that's not our prevailing needs in terms of comms. We're looking at AI and what it can do in terms of fast response to responses as well, because that's our major issue with keeping up with the commentary back. So our number one target for AI would be that. We are looking at that. We know we need to do more with the analysis of YouTube and some of the other sites, but at this stage, compared to last year, that this is reflecting the step up rather than what needs to be done next, which is more.
Yeah, just to say, we're happy to look at that. That's a very good point. And as Tracy rightly says, we've looked for AI to deal with the volume at the moment, and also frontline services reducing staff's time, taking minutes, for example. You know, social care workers sitting there 45 minutes, and then, you know, when AI just do that for them, free up that time. We've focused our efforts on that, but it's a very good part, well made, and I'll speak down.
Is it my imagination, or when we used to look at the whole council videos, we could chunk them up and we could see people if we wanted to see an item that would come in council? It seems to have disappeared.
I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure they are, if you like, one long screen. But if you click within the meeting section, it takes you to the right place in the video. So it presents as one long screen if you look at YouTube, but if you go through the meeting part, you can still do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've got more questions, but it's on another topic, so maybe others can do.
If you finish up now, when we perhaps then we can let the others in.
Yeah. Right. I think it's fair to say that not all of the topics in this report are, not all the things we talk about are things that the public would directly engage with. So I hope I'm fair in making this question. I don't see anything about members' city services, members' engagement with the My Council thing, nothing on the SLA of 5 days for a response time and how many meet that. I mean, that for me is digital, absolutely. I'm just wondering why it isn't in the report.
On member city services, I think that's the label, isn't it?
Yeah, but it then goes on to the My Council portal that we engage with. There's a whole specific website, isn't there, with all those views and all.
I think in terms of the major project going on with customer contact improvement, because of the timing of that sort of late this kind of year, we haven't really included that. Certainly we would include that in 25, 26 in terms of the interactions, especially in relation to one of the ones I think as a kind of spin-off of guys that can benefit where their requests are and so forth. So it's clearly important as you grade. Could potentially include some of that in this report in relation to when it goes to cabinet, but I don't think there's probably enough at this point in the project to say too much. But like I said, in terms of this year, this is going through.
Is it reasonable to provide a percentage of how many queries raised by members have met the SLA?
Okay.
Didn't know if Leader wanted to come in, but
Is that not somewhat of a quality?
well, I think there's a scope issue where I was going to go. So we are reporting on the digital strategy.
Mm.
The problem is with digital, it could be absolutely everything we do all of the time. So this is an attempt to bring together how we use digital tools, how we're promoting that in the organisation. Of course, that does relate to other service performance, but they are reported elsewhere. We could certainly get an update outside of the meeting. I wouldn't anticipate it being in the annual digital report because we're trying to be tight around reporting on digital. I see Reece wants to come in because he's the lead for customer contact, but I don't know if he's.
Oh no, this is fine.
Mr. Cornwall, you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, couldn't hear quite a lot of what Mark was saying. I think that's a really good point. I would agree with Tracy. I think that's outside the scope of the annual digital report. It's something we need to pick up through the customer services report. So we're doing a session with Performance Scrutiny Committee, Place and Corporates coming up in September. So as Councillor James, I'll include that because I think what we're looking at the moment are a series of metrics in which we can actually give some meaningful reporting back on our customer contact and interface, and obviously members within that as a critical part of that chain as well. So if okay with committee, if that can be a recommendation from the committee to go to that committee, I can pick it up as part of the reporting through that, and then we can feed back to you.
So James, if you could request the chair to relate back to that committee, perhaps you can ask a question. It is the chair's discretion.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah, more broadly, we've invested over £300,000 in improving that system. And rightly, members want it yesterday. But what we're reporting here, although Mark's absolutely right, is that you will see changes to our IT systems. That takes huge amount of time, huge amount of resources. And so we're doing all the boring backroom infrastructural piece to get that real-time responses to the not only to members but to residents in the manner they wish to have it, in a timely manner they wish to have it. But we're doing the boring bit, which is data interoperability, if I can even say that word, getting the system to speak to each other. The system is not a fit for purpose. Do we really have that discussion? Do we upgrade that system? You can see we've upgraded our finance system. One of our big priorities is the social care system, which is out of date, and we need to modernise that for obvious reasons that you won't need to explain to. So this is a time-consuming process, and we're doing all the boring bits. So what you'll see here is the infrastructural piece of building that network where you get and the residents get the responses they want in a timely fashion. But per se, on terms of SLAs, that is discussed.
Thank you very much. Councillors online, I don't know if you've still got a problem with the hand raise function, but just wave your hand if you want to either have a question or you want to take part in the debate.
Thank you,
okay, Councillor Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question. How are you ensuring that digital skills training is reaching the most digital excluded residents? Because I'm well aware that not all residents have devices and they're not able to read social media to know that there's training courses and things. I just wanted to ask that. Thank you.
I think a lot of the work that adult community learning service provide is kind of in this space. There is quite a lot of activity across the organisation as well, and the digital team to try and kind of join up as best we can in relation to that. And like I said, there's the creation of a new community librarian role, which is helping in this space too. So there's definitely more, I guess, collectively we'd like to do. I think there is a good offering, and in that space, as you say, clearly there's a place for leaflets and so forth, and it can't just all be online. Most of that activity, like I said, is going on within kind of adult community learning.
No, it's a good question, Councillor Jenkins, and we were actively looking at Newport Matters and whether we should continue, but we decided mainly to continue because of the precise point you said, that not everyone accesses digital, not everyone will read social media or any other platforms to understand what's happening out there, but we hoped Newport Matters will still deliver those messages in a format they wish to read from.
Mr. Kim, you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, thanks. The only other thing to say there, that there's a real significant piece of work on digital inclusion with our staff, because if we're going to help residents when we're delivering services, we also need to make sure our staff are aware of digital inclusion as an issue, and also that they personally have all of the support they need, both in order to, don't say at the lower level, in order to be digital, but also at the higher level. So, can they reach in and use AI and do those other things? I don't know if Sam or someone wants to talk about the work with HR.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so working alongside colleagues in HR with regards to undertaking a survey across the organisation to identify where those needs are going to be for training in terms of digital skills. Obviously, we've already undertaken the whole organisation sort of reach in terms of trying to ask where users need support to approaches in the AI space, but expands that into other digital skills areas. Yeah.
Would it be worth offering a survey in Newport Matters so residents can call and just call the council and just say that they're interested in these courses, and would it be possible for home visits, maybe?
So just briefly, and then I'll let Sam to come in. I think we have to be proportionate about the home visits and the resources, but we do work with other teams like the community connectors, and I'll ask Sam about that. We'll definitely look to promote these schemes more. So we'll take that as an action. Sam, do you just want to say that?
Yeah, no problem. So we, in the digital services team, we work collaboratively with our colleagues in the prevention and inclusion service area. So we do work collaboratively with our community connectors, our age-friendly forum, and also the cost of living forum, just to share awareness and also to support where needed with regards to digital inclusion activities. And I note that in the recent poverty strategy, there's a reference to digital inclusion as well and access to devices. So yeah, it's just really making sure they're connected. But I do take your point regarding the access, which Councillor Petrunia has referred to as, having that presence perhaps in Newport Matters, and having that way of contacting us that's not in a digital format. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add in, over the last year or so, there's been a number of events where they tried to get adaptations in for elderly people to stay in their own homes. And I must say, I've been very disappointed with the number of people that have come along to these home forums, home seminars. So anything we could do on that front, be very much welcome. And I see a number of nods, but please come in on that.
Thank you, Chair. It's more in up to the overall question, really. There is something that's in the report that refers to the tablet loan scheme. So we're going to be working with libraries to put a bit of a proof of concept in where we can issue tablets within the libraries that could be used. So then people could look at social media and elements, and then potentially scaling it further where they could potentially take them home as well on a loan scheme, which may help with that.
It's just touch on that as well. And library will give sort of informal help to citizens, so it's not a formal course or whatever, but again across the organisation where there are those touch points with the community, then there will be some element of advice. It might not be high level, it might not be training per se, but some assistance. So that that happens across the organisation already.
Okay, thank you. And your consent, Councillor Jenkins.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Next question then, please. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, hi. I was very, I can see where Councillor Jenkins is coming from, because that was a problem that I was concerned about with the elderly of our residents. One thing I was interested in was there's a portion of the report where a gentleman, is it comp or do you say KOMP? Where he was able to use to be able to speak to his father.
Yes.
I was very interested in that, and I'd like to see that rolled out to more people. So I hope that's going on, that will be ongoing. But one question I had as well was with regards to the digital strategy. How are you measuring the success of that against the original objectives?
We continue to kind of report in that theme basis, councillor. So we the structure of the report. We've also got a benefits realisation section at the end of the report, structure on that. So we're very conscious. We also report to the internal digital board, office of the digital board, in relation to progress against those objectives. So throughout that kind of reporting, there's that thread of those original outcomes that we were trying to achieve and measures where we can against them. I mean, I think it's fair to say that not necessarily all of those themes are necessarily having the same amount of work. So, for instance, digital transformation is one where there's a particular emphasis, and we have greater control in certain themes than others. But yes, we are. Intention is that we reported the Office of Digital Board most themes of this forum in terms of the themes and the outcomes against the original designs of the strategy. It's not 100% exhaustive, so we're trying to do the highlights, but we will constantly kind of look back in terms of what we said we would do and what we've been doing. The other piece on that is the intention is that a subset of what we put in this report will be updated on our internet site. So we will reference what we said in the original digital strategy and we'll say what we've done against that. So hopefully that helps address your question.
Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else online? Councillor Linton? No?
No, fine, Chair, at the moment, thank you.
Councillor Hunt? Councillor Evans?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going slightly backwards now because I was just looking for a planning application. So I think it's a great, as an example of improvement. So I think the report is greatly improved. The website development says we've got an enhanced website. We have, but I was just going through the process. For example, of searching for planning application. We've got duplicate steps within there, or triplicate steps. So to make it easier, I think if you look online, searching, go in, and then you ask for it, then it says search for an application, then you search again, and then you come through. So there's more than one. You know, I think we could do a greater improvement to help with things like that. So so I was just going through that process to make sure I wasn't being mad or anything, but it does add.
I just come in.
Yeah.
On the planning point, I don't need to wish for to say this. So in terms of the website, we know there's more to do, and the infrastructure of the website has changed. It's now compliant. It's now bilingual. It's now open source. It's now value for money. Not all of the content has transitioned yet, and the systems within that, we're out of scope with that. That said, we know about the planning system in particular as something that needs review, and as part of the customer contact work, there's a bit more than that. There's a development in place to review the planning system and to determine what we need to do to enhance that. So that's definitely in the forward plan.
Well, no, it's just that we're very conscious of that. You know, if people go on the website and they like the website, you're right, when they want to interact and engage in services, they're not seeing that modernisation piece come through on those levels. But we are very conscious of that and are working on that. But equally, in the background, it is, are those systems and those services fit for purpose anymore to deal with that demand and give the officers the necessary tools to make all that seamlessly happen. And that's what we're focusing on. And it's a big part of this work, where you'll see on benefits realisation, what we're changing all the systems, like the housing system has been changed quite radically, because it wasn't user friendly, it was clunky, it was old, and we have a lot of systems.
Yeah.
So we are on it. It's going to take us time. You know, that's just being honest. It's going to take us time. A lot of legacy systems, but we are very conscious of that. And the website, when we change those systems, the website will make that more seamless as that happens piece by piece.
Yeah, and the other point was, I'm just using an example. There'll be two examples here because it's on page 20 of 34 on the one if you open the PDF, and it's on page 18 of the other system. So talking systems, I can't remember which one's which, but references to the CCTV infrastructure. Funny enough, I raised that question to council, and I've actually got a written question submitted about concerns people have about the CCTV. So you say it's been upgraded, and the difference it makes is enhanced support. We don't say why it was upgraded, what the issues were, and how is this additional going to improve the system?
In terms of the reason behind it was essentially the end of an existing contract, which ended, I think, December before last. So we required to as part of that, but we used existing the next specifically for us for that hardware. So we had new hardware for that. So as in any kind of refresh, whether it's a laptop or whatever, we tend to get a better, faster, more efficient sort of setup. So that's gone in. There are further improvements that are required to that in terms of some of our sites. Also, I think what we've established is the original setup was not doing quite what it was supposed to do. So there was supposed to be resilience in there that actually didn't materialise. So as part of this new setup, intention is to resilience. So essentially, there are two sites. What if one goes down for whatever reason, then the system will still work. That currently doesn't happen. As part of this new changes, that will be, I'm going to say, reinstated, but actually so.
And I was going to say, because there have been concerns about traders and speed bandits and stuff like that. It has to be caught the CCTV. Is that a systems issue? Is that having to?
I think we're working with colleagues in the CCTV service to see what improvements they can make. Like I said, some of that is it's this resilience code which we're looking to address, and some updates to their hardware as well. So it won't happen immediately, but there are developments we're expecting to make improvements.
Coming check.
Yeah, just colleagues. I understand people online are struggling to hear particularly well.
Oh, that's fine.
So
Okay.
shout a bit down.
Hence 11, so I can just come up. So the new infrastructure would allow for increased cameras as well. So if they, I don't know where the issue was, it could have potentially been failure in the system, which I doubt, but it could have been, or it could have been there were cameras in that particular area to capture, the bit you described. So if there was a need for increased cameras and the way they stream, then the new infrastructure would cope with that a lot better.
Well, I haven't been in their chair for years. It used to be fascinating. It's like watching telly. It was all these screens. I thought it's brilliant. But I don't know what improvements we made since that time, or whether through your chair AI can feature at all. Whether if you've got all these screens, whether they can pick up on things which perhaps you've got for you and I.
I think perhaps a relevant question is, are these fixed cameras or do they need interaction either from AI or people to focus in on events in the city centre?
And I think that's probably a little bit outside of our role, but we can take a follow-up question on that. I don't know if we
Yeah, the only thing with AI, I'm a big fan of organisation. The issue with AI and say CCTV is face recognition software, and diplomatically AI ironed out all those bugs of making inappropriate assumptions by AI. I don't know how else to word that, and the police force, I think it was South Wales. The South Wales police force had an issue with face recognition technology, and it stereotyped, I think, basically in a nutshell. So in this space, I'm more cautious on AI and CCTV, particularly face recognition software. Would we rule it out? Absolutely not.
I wasn't even necessarily saying that, but if you, for instance, there's an action of somebody chucking a brick towards a window, where they can pick up that sort of action on the camera, an unusual action, so I say,
the thing is, on a Friday, Saturday night,
well, yeah, it would be a low.
This is our problem. But in terms of infrastructure, I heard your question, and I've been speaking to the team, and it's fair to say we are updating the system as we go along, and we need to do more in space. And Dominic just said, system is enabling us to increase coverage. I think so it allows us potentially to increase coverage if traders feel that a camera should capture something, but we don't actually have a camera there. Maybe we can have those discussions.
in terms of forward planning as well, you may notice that there's a power outage in the Civic Centre coming up. We're closed for that day. Part of that is the better power resilience for CCTV. So whether that's not sort of job and finish, you know, those infrastructure developments as we rely on that more and more. And the other thing I would say about AI is we are really reaching into where can we use it in every possible sense. But we need to be proportionate with our risk.
So my training now, a personal training.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Attended, and that's a great example of AI.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I think that's all. You know, it's useful stuff that we can take back elsewhere. I would just like to remind committee and officers present that we need to be really careful about the conversations we have around our security capabilities in a public forum. So I think if there's some series of questions there that Councillor Evans has got, we can look to resolve those.
It's actually in the report, Chair. So
He's quoted from the report.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
would leave it to what was within the report.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other fresh questions?
Your
No?
chair.
Yeah, please.
Regarding the cyber security and threats, you've got on in the report demonstrates continued vigilance to protect customers' data, but there's no percentages or how many attempts at breaches, how many has breached in the findings.
I think we dealt with that last time, didn't we?
Yeah, so we pick that up as far as we are able, because again with cyber one has to be proportionate, but we pick that up as far as we are able in the information risk report, and we don't fully share.
Okay, see what's through. Thank you. Bye.
We don't fully share the details of cyber threats, but what I can reassure you is we're very active in that space. We participate in a new Wales cyber assessment framework. We've had a workshop where we simulated an attack, and a number of us were, what do you do about that and how you respond. So we're very live in that space, and we also work with national partners.
Okay.
It's just all, yeah, and we do all of that, and we prep and we test, and but I always say this every time: we can never be 100%. It's just for members all to be aware. We live it as a constant threat. We hear of other institutions. Marks and Spencer's, I think, was in the press recently, maybe Co-op.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not just public organisations, big private organisations. So just to emphasise, we can't 100% guarantee that it's just the world we live in.
Yeah, and if you have a specific question on that one, perhaps you could get back to Ms. McKim.
Yeah.
And this relates back to the previous report we had. So there was quite a bit of information in there, but obviously that was sensitively controlled. I think that's the reasonable way of saying it. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Can we move forward then and have a look at what we're going to say to the cabinet and what we're going to say in terms of
It's only got 3 quarters now, Chair.
in terms of what you've been asked about this morning, right? So first thing we needed to provide feedback on performance and future actions. Well, I think you summed it up when you said the performance is constantly under review, and when we get new technology, it tends to better the performance. But what else would you like to say about that? We got anything?
If you like, I'll just run through everything I've captured, and then we can always add an event as we go. So I've noted Councillor James's request for the 2024 Instagram engagement figures.
Shall I just answer that now?
Yeah.
Because I've got them now. I just didn't want to interrupt. The starting point was 2.4k, so if you extrapolate that out, and that brings us up to nearly 135,000.
Over what 2.4k a month or 2.4k?
That was a starting point of where it is now, representing the 5,000% increase.
So in 2024, it was roughly 600 and.
No, in 2024, it's 2.4.
Yeah, no, we're talking about a 4-month period though. I'm mentally trying to put it into a monthly figure, so
Can-
2024.
Okay,
Okay, consider your action,
Okay.
this weekend and come back to us, okay? It's not really meant to arithmetic. Okay,
Not in a
so
public forum, Chair.
Right, I put that one back in. I've got a recommendation about the increase in promotion for digital inclusion skills initiative 1. The recommendation about the SLA for response times of previous raised by members being met included in the customer contact improvement project updates going to the place committee. And I've noted an action for me that once that comms report is published for the place committee, I'll circulate it to approve. That's all I've got. If anyone wants to add anything or amend anything.
so the performance thing, I think, most of those are recommendations to cabinet, I think most of them require funding, I think. Is that fair? No, if it's not fair, please say.
Well, you know, I can say more generally, as the committee, and I've said it in many public forums, of things where I can fund that enhanced service both for members and for residents and make us more efficient, saving taxpayers money. For better performance, I will always invest in.
Thank you.
I clarify on whether sentiment analysis was a recommendation.
Happy.
I think I said I would check on that for that review that you're going to get the report on, so that will be included in that.
So if you want to wait until you've got that information before you say that it's a recommendation. Okay. So does that, are we content now with this matter?
If you're content, I'm happy.
Right. So you've got something to say to them? And when you send the things to.
Oh yes, yeah, I'll send out the recommendations once they've all been checked and to have this over the next next time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's coming quick because I think you guys did want to. Just take care. Because I just want that message. I might be wrong.
Well, Mr. Case. Hello, sir. How are you?
Well, I don't think you've been to see us before.
No, I haven't.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Right. Are you going to talk to us about the reports and then we'll answer questions?
Okay, so good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I hope everyone's okay. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview, if that's okay, and just talk about some of the significant bits that I think would be helpful for you, I guess, in terms of the journey. I think the important bit to share with you, as you probably know with any strategies, I imagine you see a number of these. It's been a very long piece of work. It's taken probably, I would say, about 18 months to produce the document. Originally, we set up a oversight steering group to look at this piece of work. So it was made up of a number of key partners to help us obviously develop the strategy. And during the process, I think just to sort of explain in terms of how we gathered the information, we used a number of different methodologies. So we did use surveys with children, young people and stakeholders particularly. I'll be very honest with you, I think the children and young people really struggled with the surveys. And I'm sure you're used to the experience. Sometimes surveys don't always get the best from children and young people particularly. And I think it's really important to share that I think we also just need to recognise that children looked after aren't used to sometimes being consulted formally in this way. So I think we also developed almost like an alternative strategy. So one of the pieces of work that followed on from that was doing some individual focus group sessions. So we went out to meet children and young people specifically, particularly in settings. So we went to a couple of residential homes. And one of the other core groups that was particularly useful, as you know, in Newport, we support a number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. We worked with the GAP, and the GAP is a fab third partners. I'm sure you'll be aware of them. We visited the GAP and then did an excellent piece of work with about 18 unaccompanied asylum-seeking people. So it was really good. We had an opportunity to talk to them directly. So I think it's really just to stress, we obviously started off doing surveys because the response rate was much lower than anticipated. We felt actually a different approach was right. We also organised some individual interviews with specific children and people who wanted to talk to us a little bit more. I think what's really important to show in terms of next steps for the local authority, one of the pieces of work that's embedded in the action plan, and I'm really excited to be telling you that we're going to be setting up a young person's panel group fairly imminently, which is really, really exciting. This piece of work then is going to involve, we're going to be working with Voices from Care. They're a very established provider who work with children and young people specifically in the care system to try and help develop ambassadors. So the idea will be they'll be coming to support Newport, doing a little bit of coaching and mentoring work with this to help develop a core group of Newport children and young people who can help us really advise a little bit more effectively, because I think it would be great to have their voice appropriately recorded and also to help inform some of the development of the strategies that we take moving forward. So it's just to share with you that's sort of the next steps. Just to give you a bit of a full picture, as you probably know, in Newport, just to give you some sense of the numbers, we've managed to consistently keep the CLAR population to around about 345, 346. We've got about 246 under 18s, and then over 18s there's currently 296. So it's quite a large number if you think about it in terms of the overall population. We're talking 500 plus. So it's just to give you a sense of the numbers of young people that we work with. In terms of care leavers, that's from 18 to 25. You may or may not know, but obviously Welsh Government, they haven't legislated it yet, but the expectation is that we deliver services to young people up to the age of 25. I guess in principle, really to support them in the same way that any parent would, because obviously, as you know, young people don't always develop and mature as fast. They don't always learn the life lessons that they need to. So actually, it's about offering that support later on in the journey as long as possible. It's just to give you a sense of that picture. The key bit to say to you is the strategy, and I couldn't have done this. I'm going to give credit where it's due. We had excellent support, and as the chair will know, I worked really closely with Rowan Adair. She is an ex-care leaver from Newport, absolutely fantastic, so motivated. Really helped me to get this strategy going. So I'm going to give credit where it's due. She's absolutely rights-based, And it's really good to have her expertise as an ex-care leaver. So I think it's just to say that really informed the work that we were doing moving forward. So it's really to say the strategy has been developed across a number of different bits of consultation. All partners have been involved. We had good representation from all statutory partners. They've all contributed to that, which is how we've then developed the key principles. And I think it's important to share with you the principles are some of our aspirations. We do appreciate that the things that we have taken forward, we may not be able to achieve absolutely everything. And I understand that's the purpose of an aspiration. You're aiming for it, aren't you? But really what we've then done, and you will see hopefully in the document bundle that we've included the action plan to show you how we feel we're going to be able to meet those aspirations. But I think the important part here is the aspirations really are about what children and young people are telling us matters to them, that this specific cohort. So everything that's been embedded in the strategy is a reflection of the things that they told us are important. So I think it's really just key to stress that. The action plan is part of an ongoing monitoring group. So we have a quarterly group who meet to review that. So what that includes is all our statutory partners. And my aspiration is to get some young people on that action planning group. I think that would be, for me, the gold standard. So this is part of the reason we want to get the young persons panel up and running, so we can include them in that piece of work and they can hold us to account. So for me, that would be the next step. And obviously that will include all relevant partners, and I have explained to the chair before, just to give you a flavour of some of the things that we've already been addressing. We've got a really positive subgroup, which is the Employment Training and Development Working Group, and we're working with a private sector provider at the moment, and we've managed to set up 5 paid traineeships for some of our care leavers, which is really exciting. That includes those from 16 plus, because obviously it's in terms of age appropriate range. And then another really lovely piece of, I guess, practical work is we've now progressed so that all care experienced young people, when they leave the system and get support from housing, if they're in temporary accommodation, they're now moving to priority status, which is really positive. And that's also in line with very much the ambition of Welsh Government at the moment. So it's just to give you some tangible examples. I think the other thing, and I promise I'll bring this to a close and give you a chance to ask me some questions. I think the important bit is I'm really proud to work for Newport, because obviously we're the first local authority in Wales to drive forward care experience as a protected characteristic. That's really exciting. And for me, the strategy is one of those fundamental important bits of work that supports that aspiration. It's about how we as a local authority can practically support that protected characteristic. And this is one of those methods really to achieve that. So it's really to say this is a really positive piece of work. As you know, it's set up for the next 3 years. We have, and I was just going to time the last bit for you, we've moved from, and again, really pleased for Newport, we've moved away from traditional corporate parenting to community parenting. And this was also a fundamental message that was coming through as part of the feedback. It has been adopted in a couple of other local authorities across England, but we are the first local authority in Wales to use the term community parenting. As I'm sure Councillor Lacey will tell you, she's recently been to a fantastic event where she was able to present the good work that we're doing in Newport, and I understand the Minister was really, really impressed with the adoption of community parenting, because what it's about is bringing on our broader community partners to support that corporate parenting function. So I think it's just key to say there's lots of exciting changes happening. We have a community parenting board, whose job it will be to hold us to account for the plan, the action plan, and we'll be reporting the strategy and the action plan outcomes to the community parenting board, and that's usually on a quarterly basis as well. I hope I've summarised that enough for you, and if I've gone into too much detail, I do apologise, but just to give you a sense of what's going on.
Thank you. You can't go into too much detail on this particular subject. I've got a declaration of interest. From the autumn, I'll be becoming the champion of the looked after children. So I hope to be involved in that. So we are moving forward in trying to put these people first. Right, questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we've gone from a room where we had 7 people along there. Too intimidated on being there on your own. Can I just say that, and I don't say this often,
can you report that comment please, because unless anybody's
so yeah, I'm very impressed by it. One suggestion, we talk about reference on page 8 or 9 of our thing. For instance, context in Newport, say 53% of children placed within a local authority. And we just go in numbers below. I think would A, be helpful if they were in percentages.
Yes.
And secondly, say by ethnicity, and how that compares. So for instance, if you say mixed background, 55 people, what percentage of the Newport population are there? So we can identify trends of maybe certain people are.
Yes.
So I think that would just be very helpful to try and put it into a sort of double context.
Yeah, of course, that's great, people. Thank you.
And can I just take off from there, attachments? What we found when we set up good services in Newport, people from the surrounding area as well. It would be good to know where our looked after children are coming from.
Yes, of course. Happy to do that.
Yeah, just I think they've changed the terminology. I was told off last time. Children looked after, not looked after.
Yes.
So when you take a new portfolio over, and I do get a bit frustrated when we keep changing things.
It's an ease, Councillor.
Oh, age friendly, I think.
Mr. James.
So I'm on the community parenting action plan. If it helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for referring to that.
And we're on page 1. So we're talking about homelessness, the second and third action point. I noticed that it says no child or young person leaving care could be labelled as homeless to access housing services.
Yeah.
But then also no child will have to present as homeless on their 18th birthday. I assume by that you mean child or young person leaving
Young
care.
person, yeah, will be more specific.
Yeah, but that's not the only route to homelessness for children. I myself, the first time I was homeless, I was 16. And actually, to take the point of people from outside the local authority coming here, I was in Torfaen at the time, but actually stayed in temporary accommodation. And so I would really like to see that myself as well. Are they covered by this report? How would a local authority deal with a 16, 17 or 18-year-old becoming homeless?
So, as you know, there are 2 statutory functions. So there's obviously the homelessness duty, but there's also a number of responsibilities within the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. I think what's cool here, just to sort of support where you're coming from, in the local authority, if a young person at 16 says to us, actually, I really would like to be accommodated by the local authority, they have that right. And we, as part of our assessment work, whenever a young person presents and says, actually, I'm homeless, I need some help, we have a duty to assess them and offer them that option. So ultimately, we would always give them that opportunity. We do sometimes have young people that say, no, I don't want to have a connection to the local authority in that way. It does happen. Interestingly, it's usually when the young person still has quite strong connections to family, and usually when there's a bit of mediation, sometimes that support takes place and they go home. But in a lot of cases, if I'm being honest, we do have a number of 16-year-olds who present as homeless, and we always offer them that opportunity, and they do become looked after. So once that's in place, we will give them all the same support and entitlements that any looked after child would have access to. But I think the core bit, just to sort of explain the rationale behind that, it's interesting. So within Newport, the program homelessness.
The sound is off in the chamber. You're on mute.
Are we back on?
How much did you miss? What's the last thing you heard?
You're on mute.
Just the answer to the last question. We didn't hear any of it.
Okay, so we're going back to Councillor James saying she came from Torfaen. Yeah, okay.
Do you want me to just
Please,
recap?
yes, if you would.
As best I can. No, and you've asked a really valid question. Just to put it into context, also for your awareness, if a 16-year-old presents to the local authority has a statutory duty to support them either through the homelessness route or through social services. It's routine and custom for us to always offer an assessment for social services. So under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, you're probably aware of the Southwark judgment. It's a very big piece of judgment legislation. We have to always offer young people the opportunity to become looked after if they want to, and it's part of our routine function. So we work really closely with housing. So if they present and say, I'm homeless, we have to say to them, would you like to become looked after? I was just saying to Councillor James, in most cases, they do accept that help. Very rarely, but we do get a couple of occasions. If it's because they've got a particularly difficult relationship with family, mediation can be put in, and then that usually supports them to return home. We do sometimes get young people who don't want to be looked after by the local authority, and I think sometimes that's probably because of the anxiety and the stigma of being opened as a looked after child. That sometimes brings its own challenges. So it's just to give you a sense of what that looks like. But what I was sharing with Councillor James was the aspiration at the moment is so that any care experienced young person doesn't have to go through the process of homelessness. So one of the things we've sorted out now is that there's a professionals meeting and there are earlier conversations taking place. We've identified a list where any young person who's going through the part of the system, we've got an early identification process. So what we're doing is having the right conversations at the right time so that we can plan for all accommodation provisions. Sometimes in the unfortunate event, if a young person's already living in their own accommodation and becomes homeless, it's not as we don't have any control over that, but obviously what we're looking to do is set up a multi-agency meeting process, particularly with housing colleagues and ourselves, so we can sit down and talk about how we can support that young person. That's an aspiration maybe later down the line in terms of how we support that. But it's really to say to you, we recognise that it's a really scary place for a young person to even ponder and have to deal with the concept of homelessness. And what we want to do is avoid those conversations needing to happen. So that actually what we're doing is having the right conversation at the right time. And then actually we don't even need to use that term any longer. And one of the things is about forging good relationships with our housing support grant team and making sure that the young person's got a pathway that's in place that we can identify and track that early on. So it's just to say to you, worked really closely with my housing colleague Jonathan Keane. He's absolutely on board, and what we're really keen to do is just to make sure that a young person has to go through that particular process. It's something that has historically happened, and it's a pattern that's happened in a number of authorities, as you will know, Councillor Jane. This isn't unusual, but it's an aspiration for us to say that we don't want to do that anymore for our parents, because we recognise the distress and trauma it creates. Did that answer your question?
That's very detailed, thank you.
Sorry, you another question?
Yeah, I have a couple more. That's all right. I'm sure you're shocked. I noticed the how will it be measured column through all actions, or most of them have say for example on again I'm still in the homelessness section, percentage of 18+ care leavers who are required to physically present as homeless, for example. What I don't see is any sort of well, you can't migrate what hasn't happened yet, right? But what percentage are we going to consider as acceptable enough? I mean, 0.
That's right, absolutely. In terms of what's the benchmark, that's a really valid point, Councillor Jane.
Sorry, Councillor, I think we need to satisfy ourselves that there's a safety net in place. We're dealing with people, we're dealing with individuals, and some of the backgrounds that they've come from, we wouldn't even like to second guess where they are. So we need to satisfy ourselves that there's a safety net in place.
Keep it to assure you, and that's the reason why we've got a young business advisory service. You may not be wrong, but ultimately, what would ever happen is if the young person was actually at risk. Usually, the over 18s will get service from the YPA service. We will always, it's our statutory duty to make sure they have an accommodation offer of some sort. For over 18s, it's desirable. We'd always like them to be in their own independent setting, but it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes the more sad circumstances, or if the young person has had a number of settings they've been in, and that's broken down. Sometimes because of trauma or all sorts of other issues, as you know. But I think you're absolutely right. The ultimate goal is it should be 0. But I think what we're effectively saying is that actually the ambition is not to have any care leaver in that setting. And if we get the planning arrangements right in the first place, that won't happen. But it does on the odd occasion. You will get care leavers, probably more so because of the trauma that they've gone through. And I guess from experience, you will probably know this in terms of expertise. Sometimes you find with care leavers, their maturity is shifting. So as they get a little bit older, they're starting to recognise that they need that help and support. And that's usually when we need to be stepping in more, if that makes sense, and really be there for them. But it's just to say, from my point of view, I fully agree with you. We need to be aiming for 0. And I think the ultimate bit is being people under 18. Absolutely no, and we are at the moment developing a number of supported accommodation options for them to make sure that they don't ever have to go through that process. That's the way to address that. For over 18s, it's a little bit more complex because obviously we need to find alternative solutions for them, private rented sector accommodation. So we're just doing a bit of work at the moment to try and work with private rented sector providers. That's a bit of a tough area because there's a little bit of work to be done around supporting care leavers and how we can get them to support more of them. But
know that doesn't fully support or answer your question yet, but it's the aspiration.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, just on a point mostly raised about health. Number of registered dentist or GP, all percentage, and we're basically. Yeah, I think just a moment interest.
From my reading, wherever there's a percentage, we need to know
Absolutely.
what baseline to expect.
I think what Councillor Evans, Councillor James will ask you about in the future is if you use a figure, we need a command.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely reasonable to ask.
We don't know how possible it would be, but we need to know how we're performing against sister authorities and national governments.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I've had it in the past, actually.
Okay,
One more sort of group of questions, I suppose. On page 11 of the Community Parenting Action Plan,
Yeah.
We've got at the bottom, we will ensure the Community Parenting Board has at least one lived experience member. And then in the time, I can't remember what the title of the column is, timeline, I think it says ex-care leaver already attends. So
Yeah.
I think I'm seeing a situation where you have a really low target that you've already met. Tick. I mean, that certainly looks ex-care leaver singular. So how many lived experience people are on the Community Parenting Board at the moment?
So Rowan is our key ex-care leaver. He does sit on our board. However, great news, we have recently recruited in the education safeguarding team. There is also a very recent ex-care leaver who's about 25, 26, and he's also agreed to be part of that board. So those are ex-care leavers who are much older. The ambition is actually, once we've got the young persons panel up and running, my aim is to have ambassadors who are a good cross-representation, absolutely. So in effect, we've got 2, but we need more. And I don't know if you're aware, when we normally have a community parenting board, if it's themed discussions, so for example, if we were to concentrate on education, health, or if it was around residential, we normally invite young people to come and talk to the board, particularly if they've got experiences in those areas. But for me, the aspiration was always wanting people to be more involved in the board and actually be part of it and shaping it. So just to say to you, we've got 2, we've been working on it, but the aspiration is to have more. And actually, it'd be great to have a good selection of young people. We went to a Welsh Government event where we got to meet a young person's advisory panel group. I think they were Cardiff based initially, but it was really powerful feedback, and it was so powerful, it really shifted our thinking. So we sort of came back and said that we really want to do the same thing in Newport, which is why we're having a bit of support from Voices from Care to help us do this piece of work. And my aim is that we can try and get a good group of young people to be involved. And actually, you know, in a even more powerful context, in future, if we ever develop another strategy to even have young people to be available here that you can talk to, you know, that would be the gold standard for me. And I know that's a big ask for a young person, but actually, the aim is to try and build that confidence in them so that they can be part of this, because they're so important.
Right, right. Young people won't be able to come to this committee. We only deal with the strategy. But when you deal with operations, to which committee it goes to the chair, you should function as if they can. But I think the rounded point Councillor James was trying to make, we want all targets to be aspirational. We don't want a target sort of achievement.
Okay.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, building on that, firstly, just to clarify, Rowan and the other lived experience member, those are
Might be saying it's Cameron. It's his name.
Cameron, yeah. Thank you. Rowan and Cameron, they are voting members of the board.
Yes, so yes, absolutely. They have a central body.
And the young people who come and speak to the board, do they get a vote, or is it just to present to the board?
Normally they present, but actually the aspiration would be for them to also have a vote as well. That for me is a fundamental part. I'm really glad that you're asking these questions. It's making me think about this as well.
That's okay. How many other people sit on board? How many people sit on the board in total?
It varies, but we normally have a range of statutory partners: so education, police, health. Obviously, we have Councillor Lacey as the chair. My line manager usually sits on the board. Tanya attends, the director of social services. She's very keenly interested. We have also put out a request for an interest for councillors who represent the other areas. So it'd be great to have the housing councillor. So really, we've kind of put that out, hoping to, because ideally the strategy should really involve everybody who can influence and support change. So from my perspective, anyone who's got an active interest and wants to help us drive this positive agenda forward, be welcome. Really, I think it's the key here.
As I understand it, it's not a fixed number, it's rotational.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around if we could recommend at least be a different number and what sort of, because you know, if it's only one or now two people, you know, life happens. So for example, before Cameron came on board, Rowan was the only one.
Sure.
And if they were had an appointment at the dentist or something,
Yeah, sure.
you know, then you know, decisions would be made without a lived experience member in the room. I'm not sure if we can be specific enough.
Just ask that they maximise the number of looked after members on the board.
And I, just to say, Councillor Jones, I really welcome that, and I'm more than happy to support that, absolutely. So I think we'll include that in the action plan, that we will agree there has to be some attendance from at least two young people if possible. There has to, if we can aim for more, then great. But what I would say to you is, I think the likelihood is once we've got the young person's advisory panel up and running, we have a number of young people as ambassadors, we can definitely grow it, and that would be great. But at the moment, until that element is in place, I couldn't confidently tell you what that's going to look like yet. But it's just to say to you, absolutely support that, and I have no problem if you're saying let's increase the aspiration and have more. Yeah. Let's do it.
So just a question about explanation about the coach centre, and also the reference to the, you tell me what it's called again? Slice review. Is that the same slice as the community?
They're very separate pieces of work. So just to sort of tell you a little bit about Slice, it's an independent body. You may or may not already be aware of this, but we're going through a really good consultative piece of work at the moment to redesign children's services, but we want to do it in the right way. So that's about engaging Newport's residents, particularly if they've had contact with social services, children's services specifically, and partners. So it's a piece of work. I gather it's had Welsh Government funding. So Welsh Government were initially promoting this organisation and wanted them to engage with local authorities. They provide that advocacy component. So we're working closely in partnership with them at the moment, and we've just completed some work around surveys, some questionnaires that are going to be going out to engage the public to get feedback. We want to develop services in line with what people are telling us they feel is important or needed. We thought the right way to do this was to engage people effectively and price offer that facility. So we're working with them. I gather we're going to do this project across the region in terms of doing it with children's services. So that's that component.
So with children looked after, or with all sorts of different
whole range. It's an absolute whole range.
And how would you?
So the piece of work.
So are you asking for a copy of the?
No, I'm just interested in how
maybe the questionnaire is.
How the community. So reference to just ensure that the slice review encapsulates the balance.
So as you can imagine, so we're sending out got some engagement posters and we've got some QR codes. We're hoping that people will be able to engage in digital tech because we use a recognised generationally. A lot of young people do engage in that particular method. So there's going to be, it's just going through the process of approval. We've been working with our comms team to do this and Price specifically. So we're going to be sending out, it's going to be a mass, I guess, campaign, sending out this information. They're then going to claim that information, create a report from this. There will be a report made available, and from that point, I'm happy to share the contents of that report with you. In fact, really excited because I think it's going to be really interesting in terms of what feedback we're going to be getting. But I suspect within that, some of the questions are formulated to ask them what type of contact they've had with the service. So we'll get a sense of which part of the service they have had some experiences with. And within that, we'll be able to understand which ones may be connected specifically as children looked after. So it's really to say it's a much larger piece of review work. And within that, we'll get a sense of where the specific areas are that have had contact with children and young people. In that process, and we'll get some specific feedback, but also we'll get feedback from stakeholders and parents and carers. So for me, it's a really exciting opportunity because I think it's the first time we've had a chance to do something quite as large in terms of its scale. But yeah, I mean, what I'm sensing is it'd be helpful for you to have sight of that.
And a bit more information. And sort of the coach centre is?
So the coach centre is our contact centre. And that's generally where contact, as you know, takes place for children and young people, particularly if the child or young person's already within the looked after system. The parents obviously want contact, but because they're no longer living at home, they can't.
Very naive question.
No, please.
Do our children who are looked after have mobile phones, smartphones?
They do.
Right, so there's no barrier there.
No, and just to sort of reassure you, it's usually done on an age basis because I appreciate you obviously have to put appropriate measures and controls in place, but yeah, they do. And the other thing, actually, just on top of that, it's really early stages, but really excited. We're working with a provider who has worked with a number of authorities in England and Wales to develop a digital app for young people because we really want to engage them in a different way and consult them in lifetime. So for me, it makes sense. So it's a piece of work that we're just doing at the moment. So it's going to be a social services connected app. Really excited by that. So it's really, I'll keep you posted once I know where we're up to, but it's really to say to you, that's another thing that we want to make sure we try and engage them with.
We will have this come back to us next year about this time, but that'll be the last time it's reported back in this council.
Okay.
By, isn't it?
So, you know, hopefully we get the answer to a lot of questions we're pondering at the moment. Right. Councillor Jenkins, Councillor Davis, lovely, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether I should have mentioned this earlier, but I am actually on the community parenting board, Jay. So I've met you a couple of times. But I really enjoyed the report. I like the way you put down the actions and then the actual conclusions. It was nice to see what you were doing and then actually what the outcome was. So that was really interesting to read. A couple of questions I've got for you is regarding the role of businesses with the Newport Covenant. What role will they be playing?
So just to put into context, to explain to you, in England, they have an established covenant in place. It sounds like the central government in England given funding specifically for a company to facilitate this. In Wales, what we've done is Newport have asked and have been liaising with Welsh Government if we can pilot this process on a voluntary basis here. It is the aspiration, I think, Welsh Government wanting to do this, but we said we'd like to lead on some of this piece of work. So the idea is that businesses, I guess, private providers will come to the local authorities, will come to the table and say, look, this is what the offer could look like. So it's really giving them scope to think about the range of different things they might be able to help care experience young people with. And I'll give you an example of some of the existing work that's going on. As you know, we're working with Premier Forest. That's a great example. They're the company that we're working really closely with who are providing the traineeships. But in some cases, it could be mentoring. It could be offering just guidance and advice, contributing financial support. So one of the things we've talked about very recently is setting up potentially a pot where businesses could put some money into that, and that might then be used as a pot of money to support a young person to be in a paid employment experience or an opportunity. So we're trying to think really creatively about what that could look like. We're working with Welsh Water, for example. They've just recently agreed to enable any care experienced young person to have an automatic interview if they want to apply for a specific job, which is great. So it's just getting a concrete offer, Councillor Davies, from them in terms of what are they willing to put on the table. And it's really interesting because actually a lot of the private providers are really keen to get on board with this, and they're really interested in what they can be doing. We have the Employment Training Working Group, which is set up, and they're routinely invited so they can be part of those conversations. But it's just thinking through what would that voluntary offer look like from them. And I'm really keen for us to develop this. It's in its early stages, but it's got some traction, and it's really exciting to see where this is going. Does that answer your question for you?
Yeah, I think Newport are becoming a bit of a trailblazer with regards to our looked after children. So that's nice to see. I think you did just mention, did I hear you say about the Young Persons Advisory Board?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. How much will they influence the decision making?
I think the exciting bit is, Councillor Davis, we're going to invite, so Helen is the main coordinator from Voices from Care. She's going to attend our next board, so you'll be there. She'll be having a conversation with us about what the process looks like. She's also more than happy to share some good practice examples, because I know this isn't just us that sort of wanting to take this piece of work forward. In each of the local authorities, they're in different stages of development around this particular area, but she's going to come and talk to us about what's going well and how some of it's facilitated and what that looks like, to give us a bit of a sense of how we can then develop something specifically within Newport that works for us.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it is a very exciting time, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Are you
Thank you,
content?
Chair. Thank you, Jay.
Councillor Linton, have you got your hand up? No? Right.
Sorry,
Anybody
Chair,
else?
no, just scratching my head.
Right. Can we bring this to a close then, please? What have we got then, please? Sorry?
Sorry,
Oh,
can I
sorry,
just make a
thank you.
comment, please? It's a
course,
brilliant
of course.
report with lots of positive work, and I'd just like to thank you for the report and thank you and your team for your hard work. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Right, so what recommendation? Yeah, please.
So also noticed about committee's comment about highlighting how impressed they were with the design and the accessibility of the report. I've noticed the request for information report regarding the collected feedback from the consultation and service redesign from me. And the recommendations I've noted are to use percentages to identify trends within the report, noting how many CLA are on the right side of the Newport area and the percentage for that, including baseline numbers and percentages in those columns where percentages are mentioned. Maximising the number of lived experience board members, benchmarking and researching best practices from other authorities where appropriate, and the recommendation that this comes back to committee annually to report back. I don't miss anything. Anything to add?
Next year.
Yeah.
Just so all of these things are specifically dealing with the strategy and its priorities. Now, have we got anything we specifically want to say to the cabinet? Because we would expect all these things that we've asked for to be included in the next report, and it doesn't seem contentious. There doesn't seem to be anything in there. We're not asking for the moon or anything like that.
I'm sure if you ask if would they need any more money, I know the answer was.
That's it. So can we say to the cabinet that we're content with the report and the trends?
It's just the way the report was written.
Yeah, I already asked.
Yeah, I got
That's
that. Yes.
So that was off the record. We just went to the chief executive. Please be out with this report and this style of report. One other thing, if I might, I understand Rhoda Denham has just got a very significant promotion in her day job. So can we congratulate her on that? And that completes this one. Thank you very much for coming on to this.
Thank you for all of your contributions. I really
Hope
need
you were too lonely over there on your own.
I think Reece has come to give me a bit of backup in case, but I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate the questions, and it's been great because that's just going to give us a little bit more body to the action plan. Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Well done.
Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Okay. Scrutiny advisory report. Please, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. If I start sort of in the middle with the forward work programme, you might have noticed that we've added a meeting into September to consider the empty home strategy. So that's the 25th of September. That's
No,
reflected in the document.
the officer's leaving.
Sorry, Councillor Linton.
Oh, sorry, Chair, I didn't realise the mic was on.
In terms of actions and outcomes, you'll notice that outcomes, a lot of them have already been responded to, but there are a few outstanding. Same with the actions. I'll remark the ones that are outstanding as outstanding from this point forward, and I'll chase it again today. But yes, my general update then, unless there's any questions or any.
Yeah,
Can I just say, Chair?
Councillor Adams.
Sorry, yeah, rather than wait till September for the so I'm glad we've got the dates on now because it's from 26th of June. So we know it's been about a month, so perhaps they could be forwarded.
Yeah, as soon as I get them, I'll
Yeah.
circulate, no problem.
I was also about to note that it's been almost a month. I would have thought that the request we made was quite, it doesn't seem like an overly complicated request. How many schools in Newport have solar panels installed? They must, that must be a click of a button sort of thing. If it isn't, you know, yeah, can we ask in the update, you know, if they do come back and say, or if we don't hear from them, you know, can we ask for a reason for the delay? Like after, if there's further delay from this point.
Should we send the question?
That would go to Laura and Sylvia as head of service. And again, like I said, I will choose today. So the next step, if we don't have a response, would be to write to them on behalf of the committee. But yeah, I'll choose again today and we will have a response relatively quickly.
I don't see outcomes noted either for, sorry, have we done outcomes or are we still on action?
I raised it.
Yeah, just it's not been accepted, rejected, or
Yes, yeah. So I will take that along with the actions.
Okay. Well, I would say I'm very pleased to see this homeless strategy coming to us in September. Mr. Walton's been with us about 2 years now, I think.
Off the top of my head, I think
Yeah,
so.
and he does seem to have made great strides. So I'm hoping we'll see a very positive document now in September.
You mean the empty homes strategy, Jim?
Housing.
With empty home strategy.
88 empty home strategy.
Yeah.
There has been a provisional strategy for trying to bring any empty homes into the council stock.
We've had one for decades, and it's not often enacted on, should we say. It's been woefully short.
Well, I hope as a committee what we've been doing is trying to get proactive stuff done, and not
Absolutely, yeah.
not letting strategies go on for years and years. And trying to get progress in each year. Absolutely is essential. Anyway, thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a very pleasant summer.